Good evening, guys. I see I'm a tad late. It's just a minute or so after 6. It's Carl. This is ENTP 7312. I'm going to be dealing with Learning Unit 4, which is Chapter 12 in the textbook. My funny email address, looking strange tonight, and there's even a typing mistake. Well done. That's Varsity College with an E in there. Please feel free to drop me an email. There's your learning outcomes for this unit. You need to always look at these learning outcomes when preparing or when looking at assignments or a POE or something like that, because one of these, the questions will always be based on this type. Start your company, to start your organization. And it's ideal for people who have little or no funds to be able to start something and to be able to start a successful entrepreneurial venture. In many cases, the entrepreneur doesn't necessarily have the funding, and they then use bootstrapping. So bootstrapping is really literally pulling yourself up by your shoelaces or your bootlaces. If we're going to go into a tough battle, we wear boots, and therefore we talk about bootstrapping, taking those bootlaces or bootstraps and pulling yourself up into a position where you can actually do something. So we'll look at a couple of ways where you can find funding. Look at the less obvious. The obvious ways is go to a bank and get a loan from a bank or get a loan from a family member. And those are the obvious things. For this to be successful, we need to look at those principles of entrepreneurship. You'll remember how it's different approaches for different folks, and how we said that in this course, we will look at the entrepreneurial method as an alternative to the normal routine things that the circular method that you've been taught before and so on. Just a reminder of what the entrepreneurial method was, the 8 principles of entrepreneurship. Firstly, identify what's the impact you want to have on the world. So determine what is it that you want to do to the world, determine how you want to change the world, determine what you want the world to look like, the ideal world for you and your product. And then secondly, and this plays directly into bootstrapping, you start with what's on hand. What have you got? What do you know? How can you use what you have? The next one was describe the idea as it is today. What does it look like? And then, to a certain extent, less important for bootstrapping, but still very important, is how much are you prepared to lose? So you may have a little bit of money that you can start up with. You can carry the company for a little while, and then you're going to run out of money. But what are you prepared to lose for this idea? Take small actions. Once again, it links to start with what's in hand. Do what you can. Do it as soon as possible. And then network with others, enroll others, get others to support your idea, get others to help you bootstrap, get others to give you some funds, give you their time, give you their labor. And as you go along, learn and build your learning, build out what you know, so that you learn to know more and more, and you've got greater skills. And the more you do this thing called entrepreneurship, the better you become in it. And obviously, the better you become in it, the easier it's going to become. And then, as always, we need to reflect. We need to think about the experience that we've had. We need to determine, have I learned? And what have I learned? Was it a good experience or was it a bad experience? The other way to do this is using the 3 F's of financing. Go for friends, family, or fools. And you'll be surprised how many people actually get this right. if you've got a really good idea and you speak to a couple of friends and you say to them, guys, listen here, I want to try to get this off the ground. As a basis, I'm going to need X amount of money just to get this up to a point where we can get people interested. You'll be surprised how many people might say, okay, I'll get in. We'll towards the end we'll look at different ways of getting funding and different funding methodologies and so on. But yeah, getting friends or family, parents, uncles, grandparents, to throw money at an idea is not a bad. And then get fools. There's always people out there that says, "Oh, I'd like to do this," and this part of the fool is only half joking. It comes from the saying that a fool and his money is quickly separated. But yeah, those are the 3 F's of financing. If you don't have any finances and you don't have anything to take to the bank to say to the bank, look, this is what I want to finance. So bootstrapping strategies, you need to use what you have to get started. And first and foremost, you need to determine what do you have. How much cash have you? And the money that you have, how long will that last? And keep in mind what's the cash in, the cash out, and the overall cash needs. And the cash in is not as important as the overall cash needs and the cash out, because typically in the beginning phases of a business, you're going to need a lot of money, and that money is going to go out, and there's not getting in. But you need to look at what's the minimum amount of money that I need to keep this business afloat, and how long will this keep the business afloat? If you have got a small amount of money, you need to look at how can you make this money stretch out. What are the strategies that we can use to stretch this money out? And there's a couple of strategies that we can use, that we're going to look at for the startup business. So when you're starting up, you don't necessarily need all the big things. You need to do what you can with what you have. So firstly, work from home. Is there space at home that you can do? Is there a garage? Is there an outside room that can become the workshop or the office, or depending on what facilities you need? But to go rent a space is expensive. If you can find a space in your home or the place that you live, will run businesses from there, and successful businesses as well. I know the guy in the US who is a paperweight polisher. Yes, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're buying a paperweight with a couple of chips on it, and it's a French antique, and you're paying £2,500–3,500 for it, and the chips, without the chips, it's worth double that. Sending it off to a paperweight polisher, and this guy works, he's a well-known guy. He works out of a Wendy house in the back garden, and he makes a great, what you can borrow, lease, or get for free. So if you need something like a machine, or you need something that for the business, see if you can borrow it. See if you can rent it, or even better, get an old one for free. You don't always need to have the best, most modern equipment. If you've got somebody who's upgrading and you can get the old model for free, use the old model until such time as you can afford to buy yourself a better model. I know a guy who got hold of a candy floss machine that was broken, and he slowly but surely fixed the candy floss machine. He said, look, you've never learned as much as he learned in those couple of weeks that he was fixing this machine. But he says it stood him so much in good stead with his business today, because part of his business today is he rents out candy floss machines. So if you're having a party, he rents out a. And this is the good thing about the first broken machine they got. It taught him how these machines work. It taught him how to fix them when they break. So now he can rent them out to people, and when they break, he hasn't got a lot of money. He doesn't have to spend a lot of money on maintenance. He can do the maintenance himself, because that first one that he got was stuffed, but he could fix it. He taught himself how to fix it. Pay yourself as little as possible for as long as possible. You should bargain on the fact that you're not going to get a salary from month one, and if you get a salary, it shouldn't be a really large salary. It should literally cover your cost. This stage of the business, the money should be getting into the business, not into your pocket. So it's important, and something that I would like to mention there as well is it's always a good business principle, wherever you are in your business, to pay your workers first. If you have employees, you pay them first. If there's no money left that month, you should be the one going without a salary, not the employees. Use your network to assist you. In last semester, we spoke about networking as a tool. Get your network to assist you. Build your network and ask for help, ask for assistance. If you've got a little bit of basic legal and accountancy knowledge, which you should have at this stage, having done this course, you can save a heck of a lot of money, because you don't have to go speak to a lawyer about every legal thing. You don't have to go see an accountant when you're trying to balance your books. You should know enough to be able to play around with the books, balance your books, and get your books to a point where you can then pay somebody to file details or sign them off, a form of ownership that you have. Some forms of ownership, as you know, don't need books to be signed off. Other forms do need them to be signed off. But if you can do a lot of that yourself, you can save a heck of a lot of money. When I had my own business, my wife did a pastel course, and my wife literally did all our books, and we had an accountant who once a month, my wife would make an appointment with him. She would sit and he would log into the computer remotely log into a money. They didn't have to come to our offices, and he would go through the books with her, check everything. We take him a half an hour, and we paid maybe a tenth of what we would have paid for a bookkeeper. Simply by my wife. In those days, it wasn't that much, but even today, a pastel course will cost you something like 10,000 rands, and it teaches you how to do the basic bookkeeping for yourself. If you've got advisors, and we're talking about not network advisors, we're talking about formal people that you need to rent, in inverted commas, see if you can pay them in equity or goodwill. In other words, give them shares. Whenever you see paying in equity, just take note that Carl doesn't like the idea. It's just simply, it's diluting your ownership. So I would rather pay in goodwill. In other words, is there something you can do for them to pay them for the advice, for the work that they've done for you? If you there's a guy who he actually works with me, who has got the most beautiful kitchen. He did the human resources for a company, a woodworking company, through a very bad time where they had a number of CCMA cases. They had to retrench some workers. It was a whole drama. And he ran their HR, the labor relations side of their HR, for a year or 18 months for them. And in exchange, instead of paying him, they built him, well, not him, they built his wife the kitchen of her dreams. So there's always possible to do something to swap and so on. Anywhere you want to go and so on. When I started my first business, it wasn't my first, but I started the biggest business I've owned. I needed to go visit a factory, and to this day, I'm sorry that I flew to Nelspruit or flew to Pretoria and drove then down to Nelspruit rather than driving from Cape Town. I should have just driven all the way. It would have saved me enough money to have carried the business longer before I needed to dip into the cash of the money. Hire if you must hire people, but yeah, see if you can't pay them in goodwill rather than equity, or see if there's a profit sharing that you can do. Profit sharing is better than giving equity. Always attend networking events. Anything that you think is going to be network, whether it's a well-connected friend who's got lots of business connections, who's inviting you to a braai, or whether it's a formal networking event, go. Always a good idea, always a way to meet new people. And then offer discounts to early customers. The faster you get customers and faster the customers become loyal, the better. So offer those discounts to those people. You may be surprised what type of discounts you can get from these people. Last couple of these, negotiate payment terms with suppliers. It is the most underestimated thing that new or young entrepreneurs do. They don't realize how important it is to negotiate terms with buyers. Terms with buyers simply means I don't buy you when I get your raw material or whatever it is. I'll pay you in 30 days or 60 days, 90 days. And people don't understand how important that is. Think about this. If I can buy raw material and my turnaround time on my raw to manufacture my product is 2 weeks and my sales time is 2 weeks, and I can negotiate 30 days, I'd rather negotiate 60, but if I can negotiate 30 days, it means that product costs me no capital. In other words, I'm buying the raw material, it's getting provided to me, and remember, 30 days is an interesting thing. If I buy it on the month, for many places, the payment isn't due on the 10th of the month. I bought it on the 10th of the month. The end of the next month is actually when payment is due because it's the end of the month, 30 days. Any case, so if I buy raw materials and it gets delivered to me, and I can turn those raw materials into product in 2 weeks, and my average shelf time, in other words, the time that it takes that the product's on the shelf before it sells, is 2 weeks. It's a month. So if I buy, I don't have to pay my supplier because I'll pay them in the future in 30 days. I turn that around and I sell it for 20,000 rands. I'm sitting with 20,000 rands. I give 10,000 to them and I stick 10,000 rands in my pocket. And I've made money from nothing because I didn't have the money. I was busy bootstrapping. So please, payment terms with suppliers, and you would be surprised how quickly you can get from a 14-day to a 30-day to a 45-day to a 60-day to a 90-day payment term. 90 days, very few businesses do not turn their product in 90 days. So think about that. Outsourcing tasks, if you're struggling with time, entrepreneurs get very busy. Entrepreneurs are everything in the company because initially they don't have any support and they've got to do everything, in many cases, from the sales to the manufacturing to the distribution to being the delivery guy. And then sometimes things just get out of hand. There's some things be able to ask somebody to do your books that you know. Then outsource it. Get somebody to do it. I'm not saying hire an accountant. You'll be surprised what a third-year accounting student can do for you and how cheap they are in comparison to an accountant. And then probably the last and the most important one out of these strategies is don't give up your day job. Meaning you should have a day job. A day job is a great thing to do. It brings cash in. It's allowed to pay rent for the place that you're staying in, where you might be working from, and it allows you to do a lot of things. And if you can't, if your business is starting to take more time, see if you can't get a half-day position or an hourly paid position. So keep that income stream running for as long as possible, so that you have a second stream of income while the business is busy growing. And many people today, in today's day and age, will tell you, in any case, you shouldn't just have one income stream. You should have 2 or 3 different income streams where you're making money from, so that you have, if one stream dries up, you still have other income streams that can carry you through tough times. Okay, then 2 of the most well-known bootstrapping strategies or ways of getting money is crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. And we can spend a bit of time on these concepts. So if you read through those, they'll tell you exactly what. So crowdfunding is getting people to give you money. And we'll look at how they give you money, why they give you money, and so on. While crowdsourcing is using people to do labor for you at a cheap cost. crowdsourcing tends to be more popular in the non-profit sector, where people will come and work for non-profits. But if you have a entrepreneurial venture that's addressing one of the Millennium Development Goals, for example, or that has some nice social angle to it, you may find that crowdsourcing can actually work for you. So Kickstarter is a well-known crowdfunding site. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, do yourself a favor. If you're watching this video, stop it now. Go over onto the Kickstarter site. Spend 5 minutes there and then come back, because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole on Kickstarter, and you can spend days on there. And basically, what Kickstarter does is it's a platform where you can advertise your business, advertise your product, your new product. And there's a whole stack of them. I listed Indiegogo, Facebook. Where's that page number now? 291, page 291, table 12.4 gives you a whole list of them. And what basically they do, you list your product on there, you indicate what the product does, you indicate when the product will be available, and then you typically give different gifts or different rewards for people that contribute. So people would say, if you give $5, you'll get a key holder with the logo on. If you give $10, you'll get 2 key holders. If you get $100, you would get the cheapest form of the product and a T-shirt, and so on and such forth. And people use that then to fund their products. There's other ways of doing this, and we'll look at crowdfunding in more detail. Equity crowdfunding is another way to do this. And that's the opportunity for crowds or crowdfunding to buy equity, become shareholders in the company. And you can also do it in a different way, where you say to people, okay, give me some money now, and I will give you X percentage of the return without giving ownership. So you don't always have to give ownership to people. You can share funding with them. This angel investor type of idea, and we're going to look at a couple of the contexts of that from the next slide onwards. But there's 4 contexts or 4 ways in which people can crowdfund you: the patronage, the lending, reward-based, and then the investor model. Some of you may have heard of Patreon, which is a commercial site for patronage. Patreon has got a lot of negative publicity for the more erotic arts that. But Patreon allows you to give funding to artists, authors, musicians, etc., that create things, and depending on what the Patreon account is, sometimes you can only view the art, and then sometimes you can actually get artworks from them, or if you've got people that manufacture stuff, you can get certain products and so on from them. The next one is the lending model, which is more like a traditional model, except it's in other words, you advertise and people loan you the money to start your business, which these reimbursements are done in many different ways. And in many cases, the platforms would also, most of these are done obviously electronically, and the platforms would also like you to write off the loan. So you can say, okay, I'm happy, it was great to support you, and actually you don't have to pay the loan back. And there's also schemes that work in this way, where you can lend money to communities that are trying to start a small business. So for example, I know there's one that I saw some time ago where you can you loan money to a women's group that buy a sewing machine, and then they use the sewing machine to make clothes and stuff which they sell, and they use that money then to repay the loan. And your loan is payable over a 12-month period or whatever, but you only get with a little bit of interest. Then what the platform does is when you get to that point where they're now going to pay you your money, they ask you, do you want your money, or would you prefer, do you want your money, or do you want to give the money to them? Or do you want your money, or would you prefer to reinvest the money in a different loan scheme? And obviously you can keep on reinvesting the money in that way. It becomes slightly more because the interest rates are very, very low. So it's only a slight increase, but it gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling around your heart. Crowdfunding, which is a lot more like Kickstarter type of things. So the entrepreneur will give unique offerings, special prices, maybe unique products, or it may be a variant of the product. So if I'm making some fancy kettle, I might make a backers version that is in a neon blue color, for example, rather than the white, beige, and black versions that are the standard versions. But the backers get some kind of a reward for backing, and typically reward is commensurate with what you're offering it. It's sort of in line and has the same type of value as the money. And then the fourth one is the investor model. And yeah, you're giving an equity stake. So now you've got an investor, and the backers actually buying shares in the company, or get a share of future profit. But obviously, if they get a share of the company, they're getting a share of the future profit as well. If you ever decide to go this route, just please think about how much of the company you're giving away, and how much of the company you're giving away at an early stage. If you give away, one of the things that I look at Shark Tank, and I sometimes just sit there in horror, where they're selling 40% of the company, and sometimes the sharks will say, well, I want actually 55% of the company. There's a reason why they want more than half of the company, because they want controlling shares. But if you give as a startup away 40% of the company's equity, you're losing 40% of the profits. And when that company maybe worth, if you're lucky in a startup position, if you're lucky, a couple of 100,000 rands, when that's worth a couple of million, 40% of a couple of million becomes a heck of a lot of money. And you just remember, you're going to run the company, you're going to work, because that's part of what the deal's going to be. You probably get paid a salary by the company, and you'll get your part of the profits. But the fact is, those people, because they're owners, are always going to get 40% of the profit. And you need to consider that, especially where there's no further, where you're organically growing the company. So, and that's one of the reasons why I said earlier, I'm not a fan on equity stakes. I don't like it. Okay. I want to do a last section of this. In terms of crowdfunding, there's a couple of things that you need to do, and you need to do this well for crowdfunding to work. Crowdfunding, if you start reading about it, you'll find that there's a lot of people that are quite negative about crowdfunding, and in many cases about crowdfunding, meaning people have had bad experiences of crowdfunding. And when you give people a bad experience, if you do crowdfunding and you give people a bad experience, in essence, you're taking away an opportunity from another entrepreneur. Because they're going to try to crowdfund, and the crowd's going to say, been caught this way before. So let's have a look at 10 tips to make this a little bit easier. Firstly, have a real product. Make sure your product or service solves a real problem. Remember, it's a principle of entrepreneurship that you need to have, because it solves a problem or fulfills a need that they have. And you need to be able to clearly communicate this to potential backers, what this need is that this product or service fulfills. And there's a nice rule of thumb. Can you explain the product and why it's an important product in 2 sentences? If you can't, you might want to go back and think about the product a bit more. Make sure that you have a product, not only that's a good idea, but that actually works So test, refine, and plan your product. The testing and refining, it's sort of plan, test, refine, plan, test, refine. So keep planning and developing the product so that there's a product that is really ready for the market. And part of being ready for the market is you should be able to deliver the product. So there are a host, and if I'm saying a host, I mean a heck of a lot of these Kickstarter type of projects that are fully funded, and they are behind the delivery schedule. Especially if it's a really good product. People put a really good product on there, and lots of people say, yes, wow, I want it. And they buy into it. And because the entrepreneur never put a limit on the amount of Kickstarters that people can get involved, suddenly you've got 1,000 people that want this product, and you were hoping to sell 50 of them. The problem is now you need to get suppliers, because suddenly where you were buying supplies for 50 products, you're now buying for 1,000. Your distribution network becomes muddled up. You struggle to communicate with your customers. Your production is a nightmare because you were doing it in the window house at the back of the house, and because you were only making 50 and I can make 5 a day. When you start doing 1,000 and you start dividing 1,000 through 5 a day, you have a problem. So be prepared and be ready, and plan for this, and plan on how many you can accept, or how many you can sell through a platform like, well, any of the crowdfunding platforms for that matter. People who have previously done this, what do they say about your idea? What do they say about the plan that you have? Many of the better platforms will have a sort of training courses, online training courses that'll tell you how to go about it, how to plan this. Because remember, whether it's peer backers, GoFundMe, Rocket Hub, whatever they called, none of those sites that are crowdfunding want you to stuff this up. So they'll happily help you and train you. Because if you stuff up, and more of the people on that site stuffs up, eventually people are going to say, you know what, don't back anything on there. You're never going to get the product out of them. They're going to say to you, it'll be 2 weeks or 2 years later, you still won't have your product. And then aligning back to the entrepreneurial principles, get your campaign started now. Doesn't mean you've got to put a product on there today, but start spreading the word. Have a Twitter, what's it called, X account, and release through social media, release stuff, let people start getting to know about it. Early funders might get a t-shirt with a logo on and a blurb on the back, even a couple of months before the product is the actual promised delivery date, because that spreads the word. People say, oh, what's this product? What does it do? If you've got a fancy slogan, and fancy slogans are not difficult to do these days anymore. You can come up with a really good slogan and something that's catchy and something that's going to work for you, right? And that can get people interested in your campaign at a very early stage. People being interested in the campaign probably means more people are going to get interested in your campaign, which means your backing would probably look even better. Look at financing beforehand. So you're doing this to finance the project, but understand what the need. Don't just have an open-ended funding goal, because you may get run off your feet. It would be better to have a funding goal to achieve a specific goal, release the product, and then wait a couple of months, and then set a new funding goal and go back to the platform and say, we now want to grow our production. We've already had one successful launch. We delivered as promised, blah, 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 blah. Show people that you've done what you've promised to do, and then have a second bigger goal that we can now manage those 1,000 products and not the 50 products. Rather than getting brand 50 to the first one with a 50 product, and actually that'll kill your product and people won't be interested in it any longer. So do your financial homework. Know your pitch. Be able to pitch your product. For you guys, pitching is important. You need to understand pitching because you will be pitching your POE towards the end of the semester. I'll still let you have a date on when we're going to do the pitches. And you need to pitch your product to me. That we'll do one day. I know the previous class said we should rather do it on a Saturday, so we ended up doing it on a Saturday morning quickly. But yeah, you need to be able to pitch. And a good way to start a pitch is to do a video, which you guys are currently busy with. But make sure that if you do a video, the video should be good quality. There shouldn't be sound errors on it. There shouldn't be signal problems. If there's writing on it, you shouldn't have spelling errors. There's a stat. I talk about people that have slideshows on any one of these funding sites, and there's spelling errors or language errors in there, or something like 10, 15%, something like that, less likely to get funding than people who have an error-free or a good pitch. Yeah, make the most of your crowdfunding opportunity. Ask the backers for feedback. So if you get people that back you, get a little form, let them fill it. That backing can give you more information, so on, and that might even lead to you being able to get some press coverage for yourself. Free newspaper coverage is a great thing. You need to fully commit to your campaign. Respond to emails, respond to communication. Most of those sites would have a communication factor built into it, so you'd be able to have communication from the backers, and they will send you queries. Answer those queries promptly. If you've got a Facebook page or any one of the social media pages, make sure you communicate, and continue to communicate after the backing. Once you've got the backing, you actually have a database of people that like your product. They bought the product after all, or they backed the product. So keep communicating. Tell them about the new developments. Tell them about how you've changed the products. Tell them about the new plans you have. Because if they have bought into the product, you will probably get backing from them again. And then lastly, avoid the crowdfunding curse. And I've spoken about this. Delays in delivery or not delivering at all is a nightmare. And it's the type of thing that'll just simply kill your business. On some of the sites, you'll go look at comments that backers have left, and they leave the most horrible comments. And I can understand that. If I was promised a product and I've sent you money for that product, so now you have the money to be able to manufacture it, and you promise that I'll have the product on a specific date, and it's weeks or months after that date, and you still haven't been able to deliver it, and there's one excuse and on the next, I'm going to be in a good place and I'm not going to be positive towards your product. And your product can die right there. It could be the end of your product, no matter how good your product is. That could be the end of your product because people are simply not going to trust you anymore. And people say things like, well, I gave them funds, they never delivered the product. Now they're starting to deliver the product, but who knows what the quality is going to be because they rushed it. And in any case, if something's wrong with the product, will they ever be able to back it up? They promised a lifelong guarantee. It doesn't look like they're going to be around. So please make sure that you're able to back up what you sell in crowdfunding. Because in crowdfunding, in essence, you're selling the product, you're selling the business, you're getting people to buy into it. Guys, that's it for bootstrapping. As always, please feel free to drop me an email. I see I finally got the spelling right, so please feel free to drop me an email on there. Unfortunately, none of you joined me tonight because I was going to open the floor for questions regarding the assignment. Please look at the assignment. You guys look at it quickly, and if you do have questions, please feel free to drop me a mail. Thanks, guys. All the best. Cheers.